Okay, everybody. I want to sing a nigun that I had to learn on the way to a concert Motzei Shabbos in the car, and I knew of its existence, but I don't know why I never learned it. And it's taken over, like it's very weird. It's taken over my my tefillah, my davening, and I'm sure you know it. It's actually going to be the theme of tonight's shiur too. ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך אוי 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים עוברים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד אוי 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים עוברים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד. These words are attributed to Rabbi Nachman, where it says in the Torah, there's a pasuk that says that there's going to be a day that there's going to be a total hester panim. There's going to be a complete hiddenness. Everything's going to seem so hidden and clouded over. And Gam, that's ba'afilu behastara shebetoch ha'astara. Even in a hiddenness that's within a hiddenness. Bevadai, certainly Hashem is also certainly in there too. Gam me'achorei advarim hakashim ha'ovrim alecha. Behind all the hard things that are going through, behind every hard thing that a person has to go through, Ani Omed, God's standing right there. ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך אוי 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים עוברים עליך. אני אומר, אני אומר, אני אומר, אוי 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 אוי, גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך. אני אומר, אני אומר, אני אומר, גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים העוברים עליך. אני אומר, אני אומר, אני אומר. I want to ask each one of us right now to go back, as painful it might be, to a time where it felt like it was a hastara betoch hastara, where you felt not only was God hidden, even in the hiddenness there was hiddenness. And remember how it felt. Remember the certainty of everything seeming so lost and so hopeless. Everyone has had that in their life, and some people are in it right now. But those of us that have been there and that can look back now and say, I was there. You gotta send koach to everyone in the world that's still, people that are still there. ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך. ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך. ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך. ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יתברך. אוי 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 אוי, גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים עוברים עליך. אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד, גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים עוברים עליך. אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד. Da 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 la la na 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 da 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 na 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 da 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 da. גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים עוברים עליך. אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד, גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים עוברים עליך. אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד. The Shiur tonight should be for an immediate refuah shlema for some very special souls, for Michal Moshe Ze'ev ben Yehudit, for Binyamin Nachman Mordechai ben Ilana, for Natan Daniel ben Malga, for Ahava Emuna Bat, what's her name? Bat Sarah. Hashem should give her immediate refuah shlema, and please insert names of others that also need refuah shlemas. Stara betoch hastara. So there's like a incredible amount of depth in Torah to learn right now tonight. So please, 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 more than any other week in a long time, like we have to, if you have a phone, please turn it off, just because it's so chaval if 1 second gets lost tonight. It's like that all the time, but definitely tonight, because tonight we're talking about Mashiach, which seems like it's a hastara betocha hastara, which seems like it's a hiddenness, bless you, it's a hiddenness amongst the hiddenness, amongst the hiddenness, deeper. Every year, every second it goes by, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. You know, I just want to share with you a thought I had last night. I was watching a few of the hespedim, of the eulogies, for Rabbi Lau's brother, Rabbi Benny Lau's father. The chief Rabbi Lau's brother, meaning the bigger, the chief of all chief, Rabbi Israel Meir Lau, the current chief rabbi of Israel's uncle, and the father of Rabbi Benny Lau, the rabbi, the Ramban in Yerushalayim. And this Rabbi Benny Lau's father, Rabbi Naftali, he is the one that carried out his younger brother, Rabbi Lau, out of Buchenwald. And it was a very, very, very emotional moment there when I was watching Chief Rabbi Lau give a hesped for his brother. If you've read the book Out of the Depths, or if you've read his father's, Rabbi Lau, the one that just passed away, his book called Bilam's Prophecy, I think, or something like that. Right? I can't believe that Mashiach came before this Yidla died. Mashiach didn't come before this Yidla died. I just can't believe it. And I was thinking about it a lot while I was watching the funeral yesterday. And I was thinking that it struck me so deep that usually Chief Rabbi Lau, Rabbi Israel Meir Lau, is always looks very put together and very straight and very composed. And yesterday was the first time, I've seen him so many times since I'm a little kid. My father is friendly with him. He wrote me, I'll never forget this, as I walked into my bar mitzvah. I don't know why I'm thinking about this right now. As I walked into my bar mitzvah hall for my bar mitzvah party, it was a hot summer day in July, 1993, and my father gave me this mivrak, this telegram that just arrived either at the hall or at my house. My father had just given me, it was a bracha from Rabbi Lau for my becoming a bar mitzvah boy. And Rabbi Lau's been in our life for many years. He was also very, very close to Reb Shlomo. I had the privilege of spending time with him on the plane and all different interesting places. Always very composed, to see him crying over his brother last night, it shook me so much for some reason. It really got to me. So it seems, on the one hand, that we're trained to always feel that things are getting better. But if things don't feel like they're getting better, we're supposed to not say anything, because if you talk about that, that means that you're giving into the other side. But let's be real. Does it feel that not that things are really working out, and people and world opinion, everything, does it feel like people are going and that things are mamish happening? So we had a few, there hasn't been a stabbing in the last 12 hours that I know of, so everyone's like, oh, okay, we're doing good, right? But there is there was a Rav that said, you're not allowed to sing the song we just sang right now. That just shows how crazy things are, because he said, there is no Hester Panim, it's clear that the Geula is taking place. So you can't sing a song that there's a hiddenness in the world, because there is no hiddenness. I'm sorry. Very hard for me to say that, to agree with that, because there's still a lot of Yidlach in pain. Now, tonight, what we're going to be doing is to absolutely attach ourselves to the Parsha, but in a way that we can really be real with our feelings and real with our emotions. And tonight's whole shiur is trying to understand how on earth are we able to relate to such a Parsha that's filled with total Hester Panim, with total hiddenness of the Ribono Shel Olam's clear taking care of us in every single second. And understanding the Avot HaKadoshim, understanding our holy fathers and mothers. How could it be that one father favors one son amongst the others? Then how could it be that Yosef HaTzadik, who's such a tzaddik, speaks Lashon Hara about his brothers? And then how could it be that the brothers want to kill Yosef HaTzadik if they're so holy? And then how could it be that Yehuda ends up doing what he does with Tamar? And then how could it be that Yosef HaTzadik has the whole thing with Potiphar's wife? There is so much in this parsha that's totally whack, totally upside down, and we're not going to dodge it. We're not going to dodge it this year. We're going to look at something. I was telling Bina yesterday. I was saying, I think I want to do Yehuda and Tamar. I want to go into Yehuda and Tamar tonight's shiur. And you were like, really? Because it's something we've never, ever, to go into Yehuda and Tamar, the whole story of Yehuda and Tamar in our parsha, you really have to have a lot of guts. You really have to have a lot of guts, and you have to have a very, very tight seatbelt fastened, because it's nuts. It's crazy. I saw by the Shlomo Rabbi, the Netivot Shalom says, did you ever stop and think that the three instances, the three times in the Torah where we have some kind of a reference to Mashiach, that we know clearly that a certain union that's taking place has to do with Mashiach coming into the world, is the three weirdest stories in the Torah. Which ones? Lot and his daughters, that's pretty whack. Then you have Yehuda and Tamar, what's going on? And then Boaz and Ruth. And those are the three stories in the Torah that we have that are directly linked to the coming of Mashiach. These happen to be the three stories that leave us with most question marks. These three stories. Lot and his daughters, Ruth comes out of that. Yehuda and Tamar, Yehuda, that line to Mashiach, and Boaz and Ruth, three stories that leave us with so many question marks. And I just want to ask Hashem in front of all of you, life is so complicated. Couldn't the whole story of Mashiach coming into the world just be nice and simple and pretty, and really make me feel nice and safe? Instead of wondering, do I have to do something absolutely insane to be part of helping to be part of helping bringing Mashiach into the world? Could that be? So tonight, it's always like this. When we have the deeper the Torah is going to be, the more it'll be easy right now to get distracted. So I'm begging you all to just flow together with me. And I'm not going to start this on my own. I want to go right into a midrash. Because I just want to put everything into context. The midrash, listen to how the midrash talks about what's going on in our parsha. This is when in the middle of our parsha, Yehuda just goes down and he starts dealing with Tamar. What does the midrash say? Shvatim hayu asukim b'mechirato shel Yosef. The tribes were busy with the selling of their brother Yosef. Yosef haya asuk b'sako u'v'ta'anito. Yosef was busy mourning. Not mourning, but Yosef was busy in his own mishigas. How in the world did I end up here? Where? In an Egyptian jail. Reuven haya asuk b'sako u'v'ta'anito. Reuven finally wakes up after the brothers sold Yosef and be like, oh my God, I as the Bechor, how on earth could I have let this happen? V'Yaakov haya asuk b'sako u'v'ta'anito. And Yaakov Avinu refuses to be consoled in our parsha. V'Yehuda haya asuk likach lo isha. And in the middle here, Yehuda's busy going to get a woman. But the Midrash says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu haya osek borei oro shel melech HaMashiach. What was God busy doing? He was busy creating the light of Melech HaMashiach while everyone else was crying, sitting around, freaking out about what they did or didn't do. That's a very, very heavy midrash, and we're going to learn it. There's a very small piece here of Reb Shlomo. We're going to learn this midrash the way Reb Shlomo understood it, and then we're going to come back and take what we learned here and try to understand the story of Yehuda and Tamar. But what we just learned, this midrash right now, is a very short piece, a one page, a very smooth sailing into how Reb Shlomo understood this, what is going on in the world. Really, if you do learn this parsha inside, you have to stop yourself at least once every few minutes and say, huh? how does this add up? How in the world could this be? Now, like Reb Shlomo said about many, many, many stories in the Torah, that we always had, like, I always say, like, we always had the little Midrash Says version of understanding, like, how the stories happened. Here, I'll do it, 1 second. We always had, growing up, a certain understanding of how the stories enveloped and what they meant based on very, I would say, very contracted minds, to try to give us the pshat, and definitely to not make us ask too many questions. And definitely we were given a certain side of the story that always just made us want to make us at ease. But I've heard from almost everyone that I've ever met that grew up in yeshivas said, whenever they got older and they learned Parshat Vayeshev, and then they got to the story of Yehuda and Tamar, everyone was like, I don't remember learning that. I don't remember learning that part in yeshiva. I don't know. I never learned it, and I went to yeshiva day school my whole life. Right? That story, I don't remember that one taking place. I remember Yehuda. He had, no, Tamar? No. Sorry, don't remember. So look what Reb Shlomo said. He said, you have to, first of all, always delete from your mind all the preconceived notions you have regarding the holiness or the unholiness of the Avot and Imahot. Let's just flush it out of us, out of our system, and now try to learn it again from the beginning. Reb Shlomo says like this, when we read of how the 10 brothers sold their brother Yosef, do you ever think about how broken they were? Like, when we think of Yosef and the brothers telling Yosef, how do you imagine them after they sold him? When they come to their father and they have that blood on the ketonet pasim, on the multicolored coat, right? What do you think, honestly, how do you imagine their feelings and their emotions? Reb Shlomo says, do you know how broken they were? He brings a Zohar HaKadosh, it's not here, he brings in another Torah. In Even Shlomo, it's brought down that he brings a Torah that after the brothers did what they did with selling him, they looked at each other and they said, did you just do that? Do you realize what you just did? And when they went to their father Yaakov, they were so broken on a certain level. Now again, this shouldn't satisfy us, but that they really weren't fully conscious of what they were doing. It had to be done in order for you and I to sit here and learn Torah and for Jewish continuity to take place the way it did. But they really were kind of, I don't want to say pushed, but they were led to do what they did, and they freaked out when they stopped and realized what they had done. We'll see the same thing happens, the Gemara. I have to show you this Gemara I saw. This is nuts. The Gemara in Masechet Makot says something amazing. My favorite shas in the world. My wife bought me on my 30th birthday. The Gemara says like this: Vayaker Yehuda vayomer tzad kaimeni. When it comes to Yehuda itself, it says menayada. Din lakihechi de azil ihu legabe. Azil nami ine shachrin legabe. Yatza bat kol ve'amra. A bat kol came out and said, Mimeni yatzu kvushim. These thing that just happened with you and Tamar, this came out like a voice from heaven said, I planned this whole thing. Yehuda also looks up and says, really? Mimeni yatzu dvarim kvushim. The voice of heaven said, this came from me. Remember the Midrash says that Yehuda was walking on his way and an angel kind of pushed him and forced him to notice Tamar and to pay attention to her. And that's how he ends up whatever the rest of the story is, which we'll get into in a second. Now again, these Torahs don't satisfy me at all. I'm just saying it. But Reb Shlomo says you have to understand that the second after the actions happened, like the brothers looked at each other and said, what? Are you kidding me? Did this really just happen? Please don't think, next paragraph, please don't think for 1 second that all this is so simple. Obviously, the 12 tribes were the holy of holiest. An ordinary person doesn't sell his brother, and how much less so the holy tribes. Right? Come on, let's be real. Whatever you want to say about it, that God forced them, God led them, I want to now be connected to Pshat as much as it's possible. And on a Pshat level, this is nuts. Can't be. The Midrash says, but first let me tell you the Midrash. So this, now he's going to quote the Midrash we just learned. The Midrash says that Yaakov was locked up in his room crying for his son. The 10 tribes were repenting day and night, sitting around crying. Yosef was locked up in prison also crying. Yehuda got married and then his wife died. Right? And then his children start dying. He married again and his children died. So Yehuda was also crying. Everything was going wrong. And the Midrash says, what was God doing all this time? The Ribono Shel Olam was preparing the redemption of the world. Like he said, Bore Oro Shel Melech HaMashiach. That's what the Midrash says. Creating the light of Melech HaMashiach while what? While there was mamish va'afilu behastara shebetoch hastara. While a hiddenness amongst the hiddenness was taking place in front of you, that's what God was busy doing. He was preparing the light of Mashiach. So Reb Shlomo says, do you know what this Midrash is really saying? Now Tachlis, what does that mean? You see, sometimes we learn these Midrashim and we become so downhearted. You know why? Because we can learn this and say, well, unless I'm able to look at tragedy in life and imagine that God is really, taking of everything, then I'm Pashut, I have no chance. But what Reb Shlomo does is he takes these very lofty, very high concepts and he really gives it to you in a way that you can now say, this I could really shtim with, like we say in yeshivish terms. Shtim means, I don't know how you say shtim. Shtim means like, Toby was using it on Shabbos, doesn't shtim. Shtim means to doesn't feel right, doesn't mix, what's that? Mix. Yeah, it doesn't mix together. The way Reb Shlomo says it means I can dance with what the words are saying without it causing me too much trouble. Reb Shlomo says, do you know what this Midrash is really saying? Imagine you walk around in the world and you see this one's crying and that one is crying. This one is sad, this one is broken. This one's life is destroyed. So you might think the world is going to the dogs. On the contrary, Reb Shlomo says, the truth is, this is all because God is building a new world. God's building a new world. You see what it is. Imagine I'm standing by Rockefeller Center. Now, I grew up in LA, so I always had a hard time understanding. He always used to talk about Rockefeller Center. Rockefeller's, I don't even know where exactly Rockefeller Center is in New York, but he always used to talk about Rockefeller Center. Imagine I'm standing by Rockefeller Center, and suddenly I see people coming and destroying it. It's a terrible thing to dare tear down such a tall and beautiful building. Why are you destroying it? But imagine if the owner of Rockefeller Center is the one who is destroying the building. Then I understand, he wants to make an even more beautiful building. Now this is important. This is really, really, really important. This is what God was doing while Yaakov and all the brothers were crying and everything seemed to be destroyed. He was busy building an even more beautiful world. So, you know how much beauty there was in the world when Jews came back to Israel after 2,000 years? On a level of beauty, what do you think that did to the world? It gave hope. You see, we think it gave hope just to us Jewish people. Most of us weren't around then. Do you know that it gave hope to every enslaved person in the whole world? You know, when the Jewish people became free slaves out of Egypt, you know that there was like freedom that was felt and sensed by all types of slaves in humanity? So imagine the amount of beauty that existed in the world when a nation returns home after 2,000 years. And I'm always stuck in that problem that I have of, okay, God, I get everything. I Not that I get, chas v'shalom, all the pain that everyone went through, but I do get that if there's a beautiful, happy ending that everyone comes home after 2,000 years of galus, then I get why everything had to happen like that. But since 1948, I can't understand anything. Not that I understood 1939 to 1945, yeah? But because 1948 existed, I can somewhat see that. I grew up in LA, Hollywood. I understand this is the, the credits are coming. 1947, 48, the credits should be coming down and saying, and long, they lived happily ever after. But wait a second. Va'afilu behastara shebetoch hastara. You bring us back, and we've had such a hard time with Eretz Yisrael and with Ahavat Chinam amongst Am Yisrael, probably more than we ever had. It's harder today for Jews to feel like they're together more than it ever was. More than it ever was. Va'afilu behastara shebetoch hastara. I see friends of mine, they leave so much in order to come and make Aliyah, move to Eretz Yisrael. How could it be that you make it hard for them in any way, shape, or form? For people that are showing, I'm willing to jump into, it's like mamish, like Nachshon. I'm Nachshon. I'm jumping in. I'm jumping into the waters. How could there be a hastara after like this beautiful end of a galus story? How could there be hiddenness afterwards? Well, think about it. Yaakov Avinu, after everything he went through, from the time, not that he's born, from the time that he's a fetus in his mother's womb, his tzaras begin. And everything that he goes through, and the parsha begins, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv. Yaakov dwells in the land of his father Yitzchak. Now remember, Yitzchak is the only Jew that we know of until now that never had to leave Eretz Yisrael. In fact, in Parashat Toldot, when he's on his way to leave Eretz Yisrael, because there's a famine in the land, God tells him, no, your thing is different, you don't have to leave. Yitzchak resembles this, like, whatever it is, I'm here. Yaakov is reaching this place of, I've been through a lot, the love of his life dies this last Parsha, Rachel passes away, his Meineket Dvorah dies in this last Parsha too. We had a whole thing on Shabbos about who Dvorah was. Yaakov Avinu has seen it all. By being haunted by his brother, and now everything he went through doesn't compare to what he's about to go through. The beginning of this Parsha is 1947, 1948. Because Yaakov's life was Mamish HaShoah. And this now, finally they're together, they're back together, family's going on. And what happened since the beginning of this Parsha? Utmost craziness. Rav Lau's brother said, Rav Lau said in the Hesped, that his brother, I think the brother said to him, we have to go and make it to Eretz Yisrael. That's what kept them. He said a beautiful thing. He said that when he didn't know any Hebrew, but his older brother, when they were escaping from the Germans, his older brother told him 2 words to repeat and to memorize. What were the 2 words? He taught him, he said, say, in Polish probably. He said to him, say, Eretz Yisrael. Say those 2 words. Eretz Yisrael. And Rav Lau asked his brother, what's the... He says, Eretz Yisrael, that's the place where they don't kill Jews.
Whoa.
That's what he said. Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. I think I'm cool. I think I went through enough. Welcome to total Hester Panim. Welcome to the Mishigas of Mishigas, where Jews get arrested by Jews by davening in the Makom of Mikdash. Enough said. You don't have to say anything else after that line about the Hester Panim. That Jews get arrested by Jews when they daven close to the place where Beis HaMikdash stood. We're not fully back yet, at all. So, I have to realize now that this was not a preparation to find your own hole to climb into right now. This is lahefech. Because as much as this is all hidden, and as much as there was a ray of hope in 1948, a hope which never existed before, that's nothing compared to this new world that God has been rebuilding for the last 50, 60 years. Every single episode in Tkufa in our history that's filled with darkness and bilbul, you run back to this midrash that says this person's dealing with that mourning, this person's trying to understand this confusion, that person's crying over his loss, and this person is wondering, will I ever come out of the darkness? And what's God busy doing? Osek be'oro shel melech HaMashiach. God is now paving another light, another new way which never existed before for you and I to connect to the concept called Mashiach. Because whatever our hopes were, however we related to the concept of Geula until now, is nothing compared to what's being prepared right now for you and I to connect to the concept of the Geula. That's what's going on. This Parsha is still taking place. This Midrash is still taking place. So, I said before that we're going to do the craziness of going into trying to understand Yehuda and Tamar. That whole story, well, there's no way that we could ever understand this story based on Pshat. We'll never, you need to throw in 15 Midrashes and 20 Zohar Kodeshes about every 3 words in the Psukim that deal with the story of Yehuda and Tamar, if you want it to make any type of sense in your life. Okay? The whole story is crazy. Bekitzer, Bekitzer, Bekitzer. Yehuda goes down, he marries a woman, her name is Bat Shua. We don't even know what her name is. We know she's the daughter of Shua. We don't even know her name. They have 3 boys. They has 2 boys. Another boy, they're up to no good. One of them has a wife named Tamar. We don't know her father's. We know her name. We don't know where she comes from based on the Torah. And then she's waiting for the younger son of Yehuda's 3 sons to be of age to be marriageable, right? Eligible for marriage. And she is waiting and it doesn't happen. Yehuda doesn't bring this son, this 3rd son, to marry off his former daughter-in-law. And what ends up happening, Yehuda's walking on the way, and like we said before, he kind of meets her on the way. He thinks, how crazy is this? Torah says he thought she was a prostitute. They have relations, and then he doesn't know it's her. Then he tells her, when he finds out that this woman was a prostitute, she has to be killed. She takes all these, whatever, it's not about the details right now, it's so insane. And basically, this story of them coming together had to be because she knew she was destined to be the mother of Melech HaMashiach, that kings would come through her. This is the story. I'm looking for a boy that grew up in a nice, from home, that learned good midos from his mother and his father, saw his parents doing chesed, and from a young age he would stay up at night and before Shema he would say a little tefillah yishit, little personal prayer saying, please, I would love to marry a very holy woman so together we could raise a nice Jewish family and have a very impressive Shabbos table. And like this, the Mashiach should be born. And yet what? No. Our Mashiach comes from a father and the daughter while the father is drunk having relations. Lot and his daughter, who then have Moab. And then we have a story of a father thinking that his daughter-in-law is a prostitute. Okay, this is the story of Mashiach coming into the world. So Al Pi Pshat, I don't have a lot to work with. Okay? I don't have a lot to work with at all. First thing I saw in the Midrash, do you know who Tamar's grandfather was? This is gonna, if you don't know, this is nuts. Tamar's grandfather. She comes from Noach. From Shem.
Wow.
Now, who was Shem? Who do we know? Who else do we know about? What other name does Shem have in the Torah? Malki Tzedek, Melech Shalem, the king of Yerushalayim. She's the daughter of the king of Yerushalayim. She's the daughter of a Kohen. V'hu Kohen lek El Elyon. So now it's like, oh, why didn't the Torah say Tamar bat so and so? We would have had a much easier time understanding why a person like this would feel so determined to be the mother of Mashiach. So the tzaddikim say, because she didn't put any of what she thinks she's destined to be based on where she came from. She wanted to perfect herself regardless of her yichus. That's first of all. But That's still not pshat. So I've been thinking for a few days, how do we really get to the bottom of this story of understanding God creating the light of Melech HaMashiach through the story of Yehuda and Tamar? We need some help to really understand this. So right now, for the rest of the shiur, for the little time we have, we're going to be doing something very different. And we're actually not going to be learning pshat at all. We're going to be seeing based on a sefer that saved my life. You know, Bat Ayin is not just the name of a beautiful yeshuv. The Bat Ayin, the Heilige Bat Ayin, was a big, big tzaddik. The Bas Ayin, if not Bat Ayin. He's a Hasidic Rebbe, so it's not Bat Ayin, it's Bas Ayin, right? Like you don't go to Tzfat, you go to Tzfas, which is where he's from. He spent the last 10 years of his life in Tzfat. He was a Talmud of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchever. He ended up getting to Tzfat, and it said about him, I think his name is Rabbi Avram Dov of Averich. His words was last week, Nachon. And they say about him that those who stood around him, that kept close to him, during the earthquake, that crazy earthquake in Tzfat, were actually saved. So we're dealing with a heavy hitter. Okay, mamash a heavy hitter. And the Bat Ayin says, you want to understand in a Hasidic way how God was busy dealing with the light of Melech HaMashiach through the story of Yehuda and Tamar? He says, it's not so simple, but take a look at this. Be Kabbalists for a few minutes. According to the Kabbalah, look at Yehuda's name. What name is in Yehuda's name? Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yehuda is Yud, He, Vav, Daled, He. But in Yehuda's name is the name of God. Not so simple. Who's Tamar? What do we know about a Tamar? And Aaron Lazel has a beautiful song about this. That a Tamar has one heart. Just like Am Yisrael is considered like a Tamar, that they only have one heart, just like a Tamar has one heart, in relation to the way that we look at the Ribono Shel Olam. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? That a Tamar, that a date has one heart as opposed to other things? Okay, so I'm going to read for you inside, because I didn't understand it either. Very, very trippy stuff. Very trippy stuff. 1 second. First of all, we say in Hoshana Rabbah, Damta leTamar. I don't know if you remember this, but we say this in Hoshana Rabbah, that Am Yisrael is like a Tamar, like a date tree. Aaron Razel, how does this song go? Ein lahem matamar. Here, I'll just read it inside. Sorry about this. It's worth it. It's worth the wait. The Talmud explains, just as the palm tree has but one heart, so too do the Jewish people have only a single heart, devoted completely to their Father in heaven. So what is Rashi and the Ritva? How do they explain this? The heart of the date palm is its sap. Unlike the saps of other trees, like the olive or an almond tree, the sap of the palm is found only in its trunk, but not in its branches or leaves. This is the meaning behind the Talmudic statement that the palm tree possesses only a single heart. Okay? So that's why the Bat Ayin is saying now, let's for a second understand this whole story of Yehuda and Tamar, like the relationship between Yud Ke Vav Ke and the Tamar, Am Yisrael. Now let's understand what's going on. There's an amazing Torah in the soul of Hanukkah, which is right here. The Reb Shlomo says, Hasidim used to walk around each other and wish each other on Hanukkah a good gebench Yiur Gmar Chasima Tova, Hamtakas Adinim. That the final seal of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is Hanukkah. Now, one of the reasons is because only after 3 months, for instance, we have a Heker of Vlad, that when a woman's carrying a child, so when do we say that a certain period passes when there's a Heker, when there's a recognition? The 3-month period. So Reb Shlomo says that's why Hanukkah is such a deep, deep, deep time to reconnect and reestablish your connection to that which you had on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Because it's after 3 months of the birth. The world was created, the world was born. That's why 3 months later is a time to see. Gewalt, what did you get? What did you not get? Now, I've been saying this for the last few weeks, that I don't even remember what the fire of Sukkot felt like this year. There's been way too much Jewish blood being spilled. Not just, I mean, we're connected to Jewish blood because we're here, it's around us, but there's been way too much blood spilled in the whole world on a daily basis. But I don't remember what it felt like to be in the sukkah, and I had a gewalt sukkahs. I really did. I had one of the highest sukkahs of my life. We had, as a family, such a high sukkahs. I barely remember it. And now I'm on Hanukkah and I'm running to the menorah. We've been saying already for the last few weeks that every parsha we're going to be learning, we're going to run and see how Hanukkah is in the parsha. 2 weeks ago it was about when Yaakov wakes up from the dream in Vayeshev. It says that what did he do? He erected an altar, Vayitzok shemen al rosha, and he poured oil over this altar. The menorah is there. Last Shabbos, where do we see Hanukkah? It's very simple, all over the place. But one of them is that it says about the Yaakov Avinu, that night when he struggled, how did he end up struggling with an angel? Because he ran back to the other side because he forgot Pachim Ktanim. The Midrash says, what were these Pachim Ktanim? These small jars? This is a crazy Midrash. It says that these jars had oil in them from where? When Noach sent the dove out to see if the world was destroyed or not, he came back with what in its mouth? An olive branch. And the oil from that olive branch produced is what was in those pachim ktanim. Now later, it says that the menorah was lit in the Beis Hamikdash from the jugs that Yaakov Avinu schlepped with him that night when he received the name Yisrael. Hanukkah is all over the place in our parshiyot. So in our parsha, where is Hanukkah? What happens? Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. We're flying. We're so high. Think for 1 second where each of you were Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Just take a second. Rosh Hashanah, I'm not asking you to go back into your inner child and do, we're not going a whole psychological analysis. Let's think about Rosh Hashanah. Where were you? Think of one moment, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. What was going on in your life? What was happening? There was something going on. Now I know we're not supposed to hold on every second. It's very hard to feel like you hear the blowing of the shofar every second. And if you're not still hearing the shofar, it means you're not connected. Obviously, it's not what it's about. 3 months have passed after something happened to us, right? And according to Hasidim, this is right now the end to see if we're going to be sealed in the book of life or not. During this last end of 3 months, to see if there's life in this or there wasn't life in this. Because 3 months ago there was a possibility to become impregnated by Dveikus with the Ribono Shel Olam. When does Yehuda find out about Tamar? The Torah says 3 months after she got pregnant. And what does he tell when he thinks that it's just a harlot, like our scroll says, nicer word for prostitute, I guess, I don't know. When he thinks that it's just a zona, then what does he say about this woman? Burn her. Take her out and burn her. What are the ministering angels telling God? Telling Yehuda? That Tamar, Am Yisrael, got impregnated by all the shtus and avodah zara that they've picked up in the last 3 months. That they've picked up, they thought they were high, things were happening, everything was gewalt, but really after a few months, they saw nothing was happening. And they became impregnated with something, because they're like a zonah, they're like a prostitute, that they're completely mafkir themselves to everything but kedusha. And what does Tamar say? Am Yisrael say right before it's prosecuted to death? Hakerna, take a clear look at these, Tamar was saying, look at these three items that I took from you then, right? She was saying to Yehuda. But the Bat Ayin is saying that Tamar, Am Yisrael, is saying, wait a second, take a deeper look. Who does this, meaning, who does this stomach, who does this belong to? Who does this impregnation belong to? Look at me, look at who I am. Who do you think this came from? Hakerna. And Yehuda, God, looks at us and he sees, yeah, you look like you were impregnated by somebody else. But you know what this real story is? Do you know why you guys still aren't on fire of the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? Why 3 months later have passed and you look like you become mufkar? What's a good word for mufkar? Hefker. No, how do you say that? Yeah, but hefker means yeah.
Up for grabs.
Hefker. Why do you look like this? What does Yehuda say to Tamar? Tzadka mimeni. She's right. This situation that I see, Yehuda says, Tzadka mimeni. This is from me. The situation that she looks like a harlot that got impregnated on the way is from me. God says this, the fact that they're not still on fire, this you have to have mamish holy chutzpah to say such a thing. The Bas Ayin says that God, so to speak, is saying to us, if we look like we're far from Him after 3 months, and that we're impregnated by an outer force that's not holy, mimeni, it's my fault. You know why? The Torah says, because Yehuda says, because I didn't bring the third son. What was his name? Shelah, right? But Ayin says, how does the Torah refer to Mashiach? Ad yavo doni im el Shiloh. That Hashem is saying, of course they're going to be like this. They're working and trying so hard to understand how to find me in such hiddenness. These months of winter, after they felt so close to me. It's my fault because I haven't sent them Mashiach yet. Of course it's going to look like we're impregnated by other things. Because God says, Tzadka mimeni. They're right. And it's because of me that they look like this. So Reb Shlomo stood up on his last Hoshana Rabbah in the world 3 weeks before he died. And he said something which could seem like total chutzpah. But I think it's the holiest chutzpah in the world. He said, you know, when a parent receives a call from a neighbor and says, you know, I saw your children. God, what horrible manners they have. The way they were acting on the street, the way they were talking to other people, the way they dressed, the way they looked. What does like a low-life parent say? Oh, thank you so God for telling me. I'm definitely going to tell my children to get their acts together. What does a real Abba or mama say? They said, I'm so sorry. I didn't give it over to them good enough. It's not their fault. So Shlomo says, do you know when the prosecutors in Shamayim come up to God to prosecute Am Yisrael, you think God says, you're right, look at them? The God that we believe in says, I didn't give them the Torah sweet enough. I didn't give them the Torah deep enough. What was happening over here in this story that Bat Ayin is saying about Yehuda and Tamar is the same thing. That when Yehuda, who's Yud Kei Vav Kei, God, is told that Tamar, Am Yisrael, becomes pregnant from someone foreign and not pregnant from the Torah, what does God say? It's my fault. Because they've been waiting after 6 million Jews were in the gas chambers, and after Jews get axes in their backs while they daven Shmona Esrei, what do I expect? That they'll still feel that they're loved, chosen, and everything's in the right way? Tzadka mimeni. This confusion that we're in, this vafilu hastara betoch hastara, this is my doing. So if a Yidla is still willing to stand there and say, Gam me'achorei hadvarim hakashim ha'ovrim alecha, ani omed, that a Jew could say, even through all these crazy things that a Yid has to go through, ani omed, God is standing there. Can you imagine what kind of concept of Mashiach is being created in the world? million, billion times deeper than whatever Mashiach meant before anything that's going on right now. Back to the Midrash. This person's crying over this loved one that he lost. That family's crying over the divorce in that family. This person's crying over an illness, and not a day has passed. In God knows how long we haven't gotten calls of illnesses and divorces. Hashem Yishmor. Gam me'achorei, even behind all these things, a Yidla can say, oh yeah, Ani Omed. Not just Ani Omed, that God is saying, I'm standing. That a Yidla says, Gam me'achorei advarim akashim ha'ovrim alecha. Even though we're going through all these horrible things, look at me. Yeah, it's hard to hold on to the fire of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. It's hard to hold on to the love of 1948, feeling like I'm coming back to Israel after 2,000 years. Yeah, it's really hard to feel like we came back to the Kotel, to Beis HaMikdash in 1967, when a Jew can't daven in Makom HaMikdash. But guess what? Ani Omed. Whether I feel holy, not holy, I'm still here. And that should be enough. That should be enough. So last Shabbos, when Yaakov Avinu, 2 weeks ago, two parashiyot ago, when Yaakov Avinu goes out to his journey, and it says he makes a neder with God, right? If God, you're with me, and you hold me, you take care of me, what's the promise that Yaakov Avinu says in the middle of that neder? He says, if you mamish take care of me while I go through this wilderness, he says, V'shavti b'shalom el beit avi, that I'll come back in peace to my father's house. So this doesn't just mean that making a promise to you, everything will be fine with me. It means that no matter how low or how far or how close I feel to you, Reb Shlomo says, one neder a Jew comes to shul, back to shul on Yom Kippur with. I don't know how holy I've been this year. I don't know how much Lashon Hara I spoke. I don't know how much Lashon Hara I didn't speak. I don't know how much Torah I learned. I don't know how much closer I got to keeping Shabbos. But there's one thing I can tell you when I come back to shul on Yom Kippur, even if I come back once a year. I'm back. I'm here. You want to look at the details? You can look at the details. There's one thing I know. I had every reason in the world not to come back here. And I'm here. God says, all the hard stuff you're going through, I'm standing creating the light of Melech HaMashiach right now. It's me tearing down the building. Because as much as that building looked beautiful to you before, you don't even realize what Yerushalayim is about to look like. You don't even realize what the whole world is going to look like. You have no idea what it's like. And that's the light of the menorah. This is the light of Hanukkah. Because through the lens of the menorah, everything looks beautiful. And every child begins to dream again, and everything we ever hoped for, you daven your heart out by the light of the menorah. And Dafka, the Hastara Shebetoch Hastara is mamish this week of Hanukkah when it gets darker than ever, physically, right? But that's what it's all about, and we're all in this together. And this midrash should give us so much koach, so much chozek, that when you look around and all you can see is people crying, all you can see is people wondering, is this really going to happen? HaKadosh Baruch Hu omed ve'osek be'oro shel melech HaMashiach. God is just making the concept of Mashiach that much more beautiful and that much more closer to us in our life. So let's just sing it the way we sang the beginning. One more time. ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יזברה ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יזברה ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יזברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יזברך אוי 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד אוי 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד da 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 ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יזברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם השם יזברך אוי 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד אני עומד it's stronger ay 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יזברך ואפילו בהסתרה שבתוך ההסתרה בוודאי גם שם נמצא השם יזברך אוי 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 גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד גם מאחורי הדברים הקשים האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד, אני עומד la 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 האויבים עליך אני עומד, אני עומד Shkoyach, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Bezrat Hashem, this coming Wednesday night, there's a lot going on. This coming Wednesday night, I'll be performing by Binyanei Oma for Yutes Kislev with Rabbi Ginsburg, and very special. It's Wednesday night. And then Sunday night, special Chanukah Shiur Simchat Shlomo, Sunday night 7:30. Also a special pre-Chanukah Shiur here next Monday night, 8:30. And then next Motzei Shabbos Chanukah, we're having a CD release concert in Yerushalayim. So there's a lot going on. Just stay tuned to emails. That'll be in Yerushalayim, most probably in the theater in Beit Shmuel. Most probably, but we're going to know by... you'll get... Yeah. Or bless me to be busy in Beis HaMikdash. Amen. All right, shukran.